Part 1. My Secret to Speaking English Fluently. Welcome, my dear friends. Let me tell you something. I wasn't born speaking English. In fact, I struggled a lot. I remember how scared I was to even say a few words in English. My sentences would be wrong, my pronunciation terrible, and people laughed at me. I thought, maybe English isn't for me. But guess what? I didn't give up, and now I can speak fluently, confidently, and without fear. I'm here to tell you that you can do it too. You don't need to be born in the USA or go to a fancy school to speak English like a native. All you need is a desire to learn, a plan, and a bit of patience. In this lesson, I'll show you how I learned English, step by step. I've been through the struggle, and I know exactly what works. I'll also teach you how you can learn English in the most practical and fun way. By the end of this lesson, you'll feel more confident and ready to take your English to the next level. So, are you ready? Let's begin. Why is English so important? Let me ask you something. Why do you want to learn English? Is it because you want a better job? Do you want to travel and talk to people from different countries? Or maybe you just love the language and want to speak it fluently. Now think about this. Why is English so important in the world today? Here's the truth. English is the language of opportunities. It's spoken in almost every country, used in business, education, and even on the internet. If you know English, you can talk to millions of people, get better jobs, and explore the world without fear. So every time you feel like giving up, remember why you started. Think about the doors English can open for you. You are learning something that will change your life forever. My struggle with learning English. When I started learning English, I felt completely lost. I didn't know where to begin, and I was afraid of making mistakes. Speaking in front of others made me nervous, and I thought people would judge me. But one day I told myself, enough is enough. I will learn English no matter how hard it feels. I realized that learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about improving a little bit every day. And once I changed my mindset, everything became easier. Here's what I did, and you can do it too. Listening is the key. When babies learn a language, they don't start by speaking, right? They listen first. That's exactly what you need to do. Listening is the first and most important step in learning English. When I was learning, I started listening to simple things. I watched cartoons in English because they used easy words and clear sentences. I also listened to English songs. At first, I didn't understand everything, but I kept listening again and again. Slowly, I started recognizing words and phrases. Here's something you can do. Find a short story or video in English. Something very simple. Don't worry if you don't understand every word. Just focus on the sounds and how the words are spoken. The more you listen, the better you'll understand. Start reading in English. Reading was another big challenge for me. I remember opening a book and feeling scared because I didn't know so many words. But I realized that I didn't need to read big books. I could start small. I began with children's books because they use simple language and pictures to help you understand the story. I also read short articles about topics I liked, like food and travel. When I found a new word, I wrote it down, looked up the meaning, and tried to use it in a sentence. You can do this too. Pick something you enjoy reading. It could be a recipe, a short story, or even the back of a cereal box. The goal is to make reading fun and not stressful. The more you read, the more your vocabulary and confidence will grow. Speak without fear. This was the hardest part for me, speaking. I was so scared of making mistakes that I avoided speaking altogether. But then I realized something. Mistakes are a part of learning. To practice speaking, I started talking to myself. Yes, you heard that right. I would stand in front of a mirror and have small conversations with myself. For example, I'd say, "Good morning, how are you today?" Or, "What are you going to do today?" It felt silly at first, but it worked. If you want to improve your speaking, try this today. Look in the mirror and talk about your day. Start with simple sentences like, "My name is," or "I like to eat." The more you speak, the more confident you'll feel. Fun tongue twisters. One thing that helped me with pronunciation was practicing tongue twisters, but I didn't start with difficult ones. I used simple and fun ones, like, "Betty bought some butter, but the butter was bitter. A big black bug bit a big black bear." These are fun, and they train your tongue to pronounce words clearly. Practice them slowly at first, and then try saying them faster. You'll see a big difference in your pronunciation. Homework for Part 1. Now, before we move to the next part of this lesson, I want you to try a few things today. Find a short video or story in English and listen to it. Read something simple and write down 3 new words. Stand in front of a mirror and talk to yourself for 5 minutes. Remember, learning English is a journey. Don't rush and don't compare yourself to others. Focus on improving a little bit every day. Part 2. How to speak English. Like a native and handle real conversations. You've already made amazing progress by learning about listening, reading, and building confidence in Part 1. Now, in this part, we'll dive even deeper. I'm going to teach you how to speak English like a native speaker, how to avoid sounding robotic, and how to handle real conversations confidently. I'll also share my personal experiences and the exact methods that helped me understand native speakers, ask better questions, and improve my fluency. By the end of this lesson, you'll feel more prepared to tackle real-world English conversations without fear. Let's start. How to stop sounding like a robot. When I first started speaking English, I sounded like a robot. My sentences were too formal, and I didn't know how to add emotion or natural rhythm. For example, I used to say, "Hello, how are you? I am fine." It didn't feel real or friendly. I realized that native speakers don't talk like that. They use a mix of short phrases, contractions, and casual expressions. For example, instead of saying, "I am going to the market," they say, "I'm going to go to the market." Here's how I fixed it. 1. Listen to real conversations. I started watching TV shows, movies, and even interviews. I paid close attention to how people talk naturally. For example, instead of, "What are you doing?" I noticed they say, "What you doing?" 2. Practice with casual phrases. Start using contractions like "I'm" instead of "I am," "you're" instead of "you are," "it's" instead of "it is." This small change made my English sound more natural. 3. Add emotions to your words. When you speak, don't just focus on the words. Focus on how you say them. For example, instead of saying, "That's amazing," with no emotion, say it with excitement. "Wow, that's amazing." This makes your English sound alive and real. How to ask questions like a native. I used to feel awkward asking questions in English. I didn't know how to make my questions sound natural. For example, I'd ask, "What is your name?" instead of, "What's your name?" To improve, I learned these tricks. 1. Start with friendly openers. Native speakers often start with casual phrases like, "Hey, can I ask you something? So what's up?" 2. Ask open-ended questions. Instead of questions that can be answered with yes or no, ask questions that make people talk more. For example, instead of, "Do you like coffee?" ask, "What's your favorite drink?" Instead of, "Do you work here?" ask, "What do you do for a living?" 3. Use follow-up questions. When someone answers, show interest by asking something related. For example, if they say, "I'm a teacher," you can ask, "Oh, that's great. What subject do you teach?" This makes your conversations flow naturally and helps you connect with people. How to handle mistakes. When I was learning English, I used to feel embarrassed about making mistakes. I'd stop speaking and think, what if they laugh at me? But one day, I realized something. Even native speakers make mistakes. Here's how I started handling my mistakes. 1. Laugh it off. If you say something wrong, smile and correct yourself. For example, if I said, "I go to the market," I'd laugh and say, "Oops, I went to the market." This made me feel more relaxed. 2. Focus on communication, not perfection. Remember, the goal is to communicate, not to be perfect. If people understand you, that's what matters. 3. Learn from your mistakes. Every time I made a mistake, I wrote it down and practiced the correct way. For example, if I said, "She don't like apples," I'd practice saying, "She doesn't like apples," until it felt natural. How to understand native speakers. I used to feel completely lost when native speakers talked. They spoke so fast, used slang, and I couldn't keep up. 1. Focus on keywords. You don't need to understand every single word. Just focus on the important words. For example, if someone says, "I'm going to grab a bite and head to the park," you only need to understand grab a bite, eat something, and head to the park. 2. Get used to their speed. I listen to podcasts and videos at a slower speed. Many apps let you slow down the audio. Once I got comfortable, I increased the speed little by little. 3. Learn common slang. Native speakers use a lot of casual words. For example, wanna, want to, gonna, going to, lemme, let me. When I started recognizing these, understanding became much easier. How to talk to people like a native. When I started talking to people in English, I realized that conversations aren't just about words. They're about connection. Here's what worked for me. 1. Use small talk. Start with simple topics like the weather, food, or hobbies. For example, "It's such a nice day today, isn't it? What's your favorite dish to cook?" 2. Show interest. People love talking about themselves. Ask them about their life, work, or interests. For example, "What do you do in your free time? Do you enjoy traveling?" 3. Mirror their style. If they're casual, you can be casual too. If they're formal, keep it polite. For example, if they say, "Hey, what's up?" you can reply, "Not much. How about you?" 4. Practice stories. Native speakers love sharing stories. Practice telling small stories about your day. For example, instead of saying, I went to the market, say, I went to the market today and I saw this funny guy selling balloons. It made me smile. Adding details makes your English more engaging. How to think in English. One of the biggest changes in my learning journey was when I stopped translating everything in my head. I started thinking directly in English. Here's how I did it. 1. Name things around you. When you see something, think of its name in English. For example, if you're in your kitchen, think, this is a spoon, that's a plate, I'm making tea. 2. Plan your day in English. In the morning, think, today, I will go to the market, then I'll cook dinner. 3. Talk to yourself in English. Before sleeping, I'd review my day in English. For example, today was great. I met my friend and we had coffee. The more you think in English, the faster you'll become fluent. Learning English is like building a house. Each step you take is a brick, and with time, you'll have a strong foundation. Remember, don't be afraid to make mistakes and always practice speaking, listening, and thinking in English. Part 3. Advanced English Learning Tips and Secrets to Master Fluency. This is the final part of our English learning series, and I promise you, it's going to be the most powerful one yet. We've already talked about listening, reading, speaking naturally, thinking in English, and handling conversations. Now, we'll explore the advanced strategies that will take your English to the next level. If you want to sound fluent, expand your vocabulary, improve your pronunciation, and even shine in formal settings like job interviews, this lesson is for you. I'll also share secrets that worked for me personally, methods I haven't mentioned before. So, stay with me till the end, because this part is packed with fresh, powerful tips. When I was learning English, I realized something important. Fluent speakers don't just use individual words. They use phrases and expressions. These are called collocations. For example, instead of saying, I'm very happy, you could say, I'm over the moon. Here's how I learned and used phrases effectively. 1. Common expressions for everyday life. Instead of I'm tired, say I'm worn out. Instead of I don't know, say I have no idea. Instead of I like it, say I'm a big fan of it. 2. Practice with situations. Imagine different scenarios and use phrases. For example, at a cafe, could I get a cup of coffee, please? When meeting someone, it's so nice to finally meet you. 3. Learn phrases from TV or books. Whenever I heard an interesting phrase, I wrote it down and practiced it. For example, I learned, you've got to be kidding me, from a movie, and now I use it to express surprise. One of the best methods I used to improve my pronunciation and sound natural was the shadowing technique. This means listening to a native speaker and copying them exactly, like a shadow. Here's how you can try it. 1. Find a short audio clip or video with subtitles. It could be from YouTube, a podcast, or even a movie scene. 2. Listen to one sentence at a time and repeat it immediately, copying the speed, tone, and rhythm. 3. Record yourself and compare it to the original audio. This helps you notice small differences and improve. When I practiced this, I focused on common phrases like, how's it going? And what have you been up to? After a few weeks, my pronunciation became much smoother. I used to struggle with remembering new words. I'd learn them, but after a few days, they'd disappear from my memory. Here's how I fixed this. 1. Learn words. In context, instead of learning random words, I learned them in sentences. For example, instead of just learning the word fascinating, I learned the sentence, "The movie was absolutely fascinating." This made it easier to remember. 2. Use the word immediately. Whenever I learned a new word, I tried to use it in my conversations or writing within 24 hours. For example, if I learned the word delicious, I'd say, "This pasta is delicious." 3. Create vocabulary themes. I grouped words by topics. For example, for food, sweet, savory, spicy, bland. For emotions, excited, nervous, relieved, overwhelmed. This made learning more fun and organized. One of my biggest challenges was understanding different English accents, American, British, Australian, etc. Here's how I handled this. 1. Expose yourself to various accents. I listened to podcasts, watched shows, and followed YouTubers from different countries. For example, American, Friends, The Office, British, Sherlock, The Crown Australian, Bluey, travel vlogs. 2. Focus on key differences. I noticed that British English often uses words like flat, apartment, and lift, elevator, while American English uses apartment and elevator. Learning these small differences helped me adapt. 3. Practice with accent-specific phrases. For example, British, "Fancy a cup of tea?" American, "Do you want to grab a coffee?" When I first started speaking English with strangers, I felt so nervous. My hands would shake and I'd forget simple words. Here's how I overcame this. 1. Prepare common sentences. Before meeting someone, I'd prepare a few sentences. For example, to introduce myself. "Hi, I'm your name. It's great to meet you." To join a conversation. "That's so interesting. Can you tell me more?" 2. Take deep breaths. When I felt nervous, I'd take a deep breath and remind myself, it's okay to make mistakes. Nobody is perfect. 3. Smile and listen. Sometimes just smiling and actively listening makes the conversation flow better. You don't need to speak perfectly, you just need to connect. One problem I had was pausing too much during conversations because I was translating in my head. Here's how I trained myself to think faster. 1. Use fillers. Naturally. Native speakers often use fillers like, "Well, you know, let me think." These give you time to organize your thoughts. 2. Practice short responses. When someone asks you a question, practice giving quick, simple answers first. For example, question, "What did you do today?" Simple answer, "I went shopping and cooked dinner." Once you're confident, add more details. 3. Practice speed. Thinking games. I played a game where I'd pick a random topic, like animals or food, and say as many words or sentences as I could in 1 minute. For example, if the topic was food, I'd say pizza, pasta, I love chocolate, apples are healthy, and so on. This trained my brain to think quickly in English. As we wrap up this series, here are some final secrets that worked for me. 1. Immerse yourself in English daily. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Change your phone settings to English. Think in English, and even dream in English. 2. Find a practice partner. Talk to a friend, join a language exchange, or even talk to yourself in the mirror. The more you practice, the better you'll get. 3. Celebrate small wins. Every time you learn a new word, have a successful conversation, or understand a movie without subtitles, celebrate. These small victories keep you motivated. Remember, learning English is a journey, not a race. You're already doing amazing, and with consistent effort, you'll achieve fluency. Before we end, I want to remind you of something very important. Learning English, or anything in life, isn't about being perfect. It's about progress. Every time you speak, every time you learn a new word, you are growing. You are getting closer to your goal. And I promise you, every effort you put in will pay off. There were times when I felt stuck, when I thought I would never speak fluently, but I didn't give up. And you shouldn't either. Every mistake you make is a lesson, not a failure. Every challenge is an opportunity to improve. So, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are the stepping stones to your success. Believe in yourself, trust the process, and never forget. Fluency is not reserved for a few. It's for anyone who is willing to work for it. You have everything it takes to speak confidently, to express yourself, and to make English a part of your life. Keep going, keep pushing forward, and never stop learning. You are capable of amazing things, and I'm here cheering you on every step of the way. You've got this, and I believe in you. If you found this lesson helpful, share it with others who are learning English. Let's grow together and support each other. I'll see you in our next lesson, where we'll explore even more exciting topics. Keep practicing, my friends, and take care.